very well, despite I was assuming the role of moderator, that I described three successes of Turkish diplomacy in terms of government communication as follows. Number one, Turkey was very successful actually in terms of evacuation. We have evacuated more than 100,000 Turkish citizens from 102 countries, and that went through this strategic communication. And I remember I went through the details. And number two, actually, Turkey has reached out 161 countries in dire needs, among them some allied countries, and among them some G7 countries. We provided them with ventilators, medical material, masks, etc. So this was exactly the basic message in terms of international solidarity and assistance and cooperation. And number three, I remember very well, we shifted a gear in the field of multilateralism and diplomacy. So we initiated in the pandemic era this Antalya Diplomacy Forum. Maybe we can develop in a later part of this debate. But since last year, really, we face tremendous challenges. What has proven is maybe the change. Change is perhaps the only constant in our life. Today, change is faster and more visible. We are passing through an era of rapid transformations. Systems' lifespan get shorter, and periods of uncertainty get longer. We witness several power centers and competing agendas. For instance, technology advanced enough that food needs of entire world can be met. Yet we still face today a challenge called food security. And because of zero-sum mentality. And it is because of this zero-sum mentality that we are facing multiple crises, from climate change to energy insecurity. It is safe to say that no single country can overcome these challenges alone. So we need international solidarity and cooperation. However, in my judgment, the main issue is lack of trust among states. Foreign Minister Çavuşoğlu was yesterday in Rome to attend the 8th Mediterranean Dialogue, and he described it, this picture, as a vicious cycle. And he basically said that this lack of dialogue feeds distrust. And distrust leads division and polarization. And these divisions prevent any dialogue again. So we need to break this vicious cycle. Someone has to take the first step to break this vicious cycle. So Turkey, in this case, has a patient role to play. Since last year, since last February, we again came back in the diplomacy literature, hard power. We talk again war and peace. Two big neighbors of us through Black Sea, Russia, Ukraine, entered in the war, and we are suffering tremendously as a neighbor, as a region, and the entire world, basically. And we have a role to play here. Some people, some circles criticize Turkey's position, which is absolutely wrong, because we took the principled stance. Since very beginning, we rejected the war. We rejected Russia's illegal annexation of some parts of Ukraine. Actually, we did this in 2014 when Russia annexed Crimea. We continue to do so. We are a member of NATO. We have responsibilities within the alliance. We invoked the Montreux Straits Convention, actually Article 19. We stopped the passage of warships through Istanbul and Çanakkale Straits. So The same is applicable for the warplanes. We do not use our airspace for the warplanes. And actually, we totally committed to the NATO's strategic communication in this respect. But in the meantime, we also believe that we need to talk. And it is no secret that in the Western Hemisphere, only Turkey, and President Erdogan is the only credible leader who can talk to President Putin and President Zelensky. That yielded some concrete results as well. Istanbul Grain Deal, this Black Sea Grain Initiative, is quite an important achievement in this respect. And we did this through our dialogue and mediation efforts. Prior to this, actually, since the war erupted, I guess it erupted in 24th of February, and we conducted this year at the second Antalya Diplomacy Forum in March. So already in 2-3 weeks, we were able to bring together, for Mr. Çavuşoğlu, his Russian and Ukrainian counterparts, Minister Lavrov and Minister Kuleba, in Antalya. And then both countries' delegations met together in Istanbul again towards March. Unfortunately, we were not able, because it is not easy. Though we were able, we were closer to reach a deal at that time. But now we are not there, and we all know the consequences. This was one of them. Another achievement is, of course, this prisoners exchange between Russia and Ukraine. Big numbers of people were exchanged, again with the facilitation of Turkey. And last but not least, perhaps, it is also important to say, in order to secure the Zaporizhzhia, I wonder whether I pronounce correctly, the nuclear power plant. Again, in Istanbul, we facilitated a dialogue between IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, and Russia, so that we can reach a deal in terms of this nuclear power plant security. So what I'm going to say is that we believe that dialogue is an indispensable part. And at the essence of diplomacy and dialogue lies this strategic communication. But while doing this, again, I mean, Turkey continues to be criticized because this is an area of uncertainty, and this uncertainty in the strategic communication comes mostly from social media. As was the case yesterday, as President or Professor Altun mentioned very well, that how Turkey is targeted badly in terms of disinformation in social media. I don't need to further elaboration on this, but suffice to say, we keep continuing to be the target of particular groups, Armenian diaspora, PKK, PYD, FETÖ affiliated groups, extreme right groups. They continue to target in the social media, in all other media, the efforts of Turkey. Even very recently, Turkey has been criticized about this food security deal, although it was an important deal. We did this in July. A coordination center has been established, and since then, 11 million tons of grain has been exported with more than 500 ships. Russia suspended for a while. We were able to change their mind, and as of 19th of November, we extended this deal for 120 days. What I'm going to say is that some circles still criticize Turkey. Turkey is doing this because of domestic reasons. Turkey is facing with hunger, which is absolutely wrong. Turkey is among the few states. We are quite self-sufficient. We don't need to do this. But private sector of Turkey do this import. And you know what? Because Turkey is among the largest, and I underline, among the largest, larger than Italy, pasta producer in the world. So for this reason, I mean, we are importing grain and flour from Russia as well. So all in all, what I'm going to say is that these are the challenges and big challenges of disinformation era, and among them, this Russia-Ukraine war is the most visible one. Maybe I stop here. Maybe we can follow up later on with some Q&A.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador, for your valuable contributions. distinguished participants, we have the privilege to host the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus here today, Mr. Tahsin Ertuğruloğlu. Considering the challenges the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus has been facing since its establishment and its aim to defend its just cause in the international arena, I think government communication is one of the country's strongest structures today. His Excellency, we are looking forward to hear from you the experiences of the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus in government communication.
Thank you. The other day, upon the stair, I met a man who wasn't there. He wasn't there again today. I wonder when he'll go away. Dear friends, this is basically how the international community has approached the Turkish Cypriot people and our state, the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. We've been talking about manipulation, disinformation. The Turkish Cypriot people have been experiencing this for the past 60 years, to say the least. So it's not just an issue of misinformation during the digital era. Technology has obviously improved drastically during the past 60 years, but the discrimination that the Turkish Cypriot people have been subjected to has not changed. What are we doing about it? To begin with, we are not a stateless people. We are treated as such. But the Turkish Cypriot people have been ruling themselves since 1963. We were the co-founder partner in the establishment of the long-defunct Republic of Cyprus in 1960. That republic survived only 3 years. And as of 1963, there is no partnership one can talk about. But the Western world, specifically, led, unfortunately, by the United Kingdom, has chosen to treat the party that destroyed the partnership, namely the Greek Cypriot people, as if they are the natural successors of what was a partnership republic. And in the process, have discriminated against the Turkish Cypriots, even though we are a co-founder, equal partner of that partnership. So it's a miracle that Turkish Cypriot people have survived this discrimination, this inhuman policy of embargoes, restrictions, and it's, I see going in front of me, resilience down here. It's exactly what has ensured that we have survived. Obviously, with the support of motherland Turkey throughout the whole process. It's a well-known statement of President Erdogan that the world is bigger than the five. I hope the world will realize that that is so. Because if one was to talk about the Cyprus problem, it is the United Nations Security Council that has created the Cyprus problem. The Cyprus problem is not what the Greek Cypriots would like the world to believe. If you were to talk to a Greek Cypriot, and I'm sure a lot of our guests in the audience will say, yeah, that's right. The Greek Cypriots talk about the Cyprus problem as if it's a problem that began in 1974 and that it's a so-called Turkish invasion and continued occupation. They do not want to talk about why there have been United Nations soldiers on the island since 1964. 1974 did take place, that's right. There was a war in 1974, but 1974 is not the beginning of the Cyprus problem. It's the result of the Cyprus problem, and in a way, it's the solution of the Cyprus problem. The interesting thing is the Western world, led by the United Nations Security Council permanent members, have intentionally misinformed and manipulated the Cyprus problem to serve their own national interests, and in the process have discriminated against the Turkish Cypriot people. We have been punished all these years for a crime we have not committed. We were faced with attempted genocide back in the 60s. What took place in Bosnia, for example, years later in Europe, we experienced on the island of Cyprus at the hands of the Greek Cypriots. When there were United Nations so-called peacekeeping forces on the island, and all these atrocities are reported, are declared in the United Nations reports. Yet, where is the world media? Does anyone here know about these atrocities that the Turkish Cypriots have been subjected to? Does anyone here know that there is a fully fledged sovereign state called the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus? It is the only legitimate state on the island of Cyprus. The island of Cyprus is one island, but two states. There is a Greek Cypriot state, there is a Turkish Cypriot state. We are the ones who say who we are. We are the Turkish Cypriot state, Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. That's the truth. The Greek Cypriot state pretends to be the so-called Republic of Cyprus of 1960, when it has absolutely nothing to do with that partnership republic. It's a purely Greek Cypriot state. Disinformation, manipulation, that's exactly what took place in Cyprus, what is still taking place in Cyprus. And we are the victims. The world has chosen to glorify the aggressor, the party that destroyed the partnership, and punish the victim, us, for a crime we have not committed. I specifically refer to the United Nations Security Council Permanent 5, led by the United Kingdom. Not just the United Kingdom, but the leader is the United Kingdom, the United States, Russia, France, China. Analyze every single country I've just talked about. Their national interests dictate to them to discriminate against the Turkish Cypriots. And they have made sure that they have influenced all the countries in their spheres of influence to discriminate against the Turkish Cypriot people. If I were to ask the audience, do you believe that there is a legitimate Republic of Cyprus in place with its legitimate government, which is a member of the United Nations General Assembly, it's a member of the European Union, so do you believe that there is a legitimate Republic of Cyprus in place? The answer inevitably would be yes. It's a member of the UN General Assembly. They are a member of the European Union. So how can you say they are not legitimate? Well, thanks to the Security Council P5, that's exactly what's happening. And that is what I'm sure I differ from all the speakers that have sat here and expressed their opinions, because we have a unique sui generis issue here. To cut a long story short, if you say there is a legitimate Republic of Cyprus, what you're basically doing is playing into the hands of the Greek Cypriots and assisting their policy of discrimination and embargoes against the Turkish Cypriots, inhuman embargoes. Our sovereignty is denied. Our statehood is denied. Our identity is denied. And this is supposed to be the 21st century. What are we talking about? It's not just technology, as David said at the very beginning. It's much bigger than that. When there was no technology the way we are experiencing today, this discrimination was taking place through the media. Maybe there was no social media back then. I'm talking about the 60s. But there was an intentional campaign to serve the interests of the Big Five, which themselves influenced their countries in their spheres of influence, and we have been outcasts. Thanks to motherland Turkey, Turkish Cypriot people have survived. We are a sovereign people with our own statehood. It's a fully fledged state. It has all mechanisms of any modern state, and we are standing up to the rest of the world, not just in communication, in every sense of the word, with the help of motherland Turkey. We are an observer member of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation under the name of Turkish Cypriot State. Very recently, after President Erdogan spoke in the General Assembly, UN General Assembly in late September and called on the membership of the General Assembly to officially recognize the Turkish Cypriot state and end the inhuman embargo against the Turkish Cypriot people. Shortly after that, Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, for the first time with its official name, is now an observer member of the Organization of Turkic States. So what I'm referring to is this intentional manipulation and discrimination and misinformation campaign is gradually being eroded. Thanks to motherland Turkey, thanks to the resilience and determination of the Turkish Cypriot people, the way is now open for the international community to come to terms with the real issues on the island of Cyprus. And I am sure the discrimination I have been referring to is not just taking place on the island of Cyprus. It's all around the world. And it is, unfortunately, again, the United Nations Security Council membership, the 5 permanent members, who are at the root of every single problem on the international arena. Cyprus is situated in such a strategically significant location that every stakeholder, every major power, every major institution has an interest in that geography. Water resources, energy resources, Mediterranean, America, Russia, United Kingdom, Israel, the Arab countries, European Union. So it's not just a problem of Turkish Cypriots versus Greek Cypriots. It's a much bigger scenario. And who are the people suffering? For no reason, we are. And that is why I've come here today to basically inform the audience in such a short period of time about the misinformation, manipulation, and disinformation that has hurt the Turkish Cypriot people. I will stop here and hopefully be able to answer some questions from the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, His Excellency, for your valuable contribution and your vision. Following a regional conflict, Kosovo has been successfully building its governmental structure. As a new state, Kosovo seems to be more dynamic, versatile, and able to adapt rapidly to transformations in communication strategies, as in every field. Therefore, I believe Kosovo's current government communication practices will present a unique and valuable model for us. Without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Rinor Nuhiu, advisor to the President of the Republic of Kosovo.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to begin by saying that the incredible lineup of speakers and panelists in this year's summit is definitely a testament to how important this topic is, and it's just another example of the fact that communication, disinformation, fake news is present all over us, and we have an urgent necessity to tackle it. I think that it's very crucial that we understand Stratcom from an education perspective. I think it's very important to understand that media literacy and media education are crucial because of the impact of information. We are now living in an era where information is very fast absorbed, and therefore it is a platform that can be misused in many cases to distort the truth, to push forward very false and dangerous narratives. And that is why forums like this are very important to come together and to talk about ways that we can tackle these issues. We have many examples, starting from just recently with the COVID-19 pandemic and information revolving around it, elections across the world. There's tendencies all over by different malicious actors to influence elections, developments in our region especially, and very importantly, the brutal war in Ukraine. Today I'd like to just quickly discuss the case of my country, the Republic of Kosovo, in the past 20 years of freedom and the past 15 years of sovereignty and independence has seen outstanding achievements in strengthening democracy, in strengthening rule of law, and freedoms in general. Just this year, we've seen immense progress in different international indices, starting from the World Justice Project. Kosovo is the second country in the world with the best progress in the rule of law. Reporters Without Borders has recently published its report where Kosovo is 17 places higher in media freedom and is currently the leader in the region when it comes to this. And this is in a very short time of us having the opportunity to build resilient, democratic, and very strong institutions. However, these successes are often overshadowed by actors with malicious intents. And of course, we are all witnesses of what is happening in Ukraine. And obviously, because it's near our borders, it's in our continent, it has a spillover effect immediately. It is very unfortunate that Putin's malicious intents are also being utilized by his proxies in our region, which is, in our case, it's Serbia. I'd like to just give you some examples. Just after the war started, Serbia remains the only country in our continent that has not sanctioned Russia and has not condemned Russia's brutal aggression against the people of Ukraine. Not only has it not sanctioned Russia, it has continuously aided its presence in the Balkans. As many of you know, Russian propaganda machines like Sputnik and Russia Today have been banned in many countries, and not only have they been not banned in Serbia, they have been enforced and empowered. Just a few days ago, just a few days before I came to Istanbul, RT Balkan service just opened in Belgrade. And this is very important because this pushes forward Putin's dangerous narrative, and it automatically has an impact on their destabilizing efforts, not only in Kosovo, but we're seeing what's happening in Montenegro, we're seeing what's happening in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And this is this is very concerning, not only for national security, but it is very dangerous for the European security in general. So this is why we must tackle it, and we must be more vocal when it comes to having a say in what Serbia is doing in this case. In this case, not only is Serbian leaders being are they aiding Russia? They're playing by Putin's playbook. Today we see traces of Milosevic's dangerous propaganda in the 90s, as you remember, with hundreds of thousands of people being killed and with genocides taking place in our country, in Bosnia. We see it today from the same people. Serbia's president today is Milosevic's former propaganda minister. Today we see the same people in those same positions, just under a new facade of progressive and peaceful leaders. And unfortunately, in many cases, appeased leaders. So I think that these facts that I am outlining are very evident in many reports. Recently, I came across a report by the European Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee that highlights how Russian propaganda machines have increased their efforts and their propaganda in our region, distorting the truth, inciting fear, and basically instrumentalizing communication as a platform to attack what we've achieved, which is peace, our very hard-fought peace. And in today's world, as David mentioned a little earlier, I really liked it. He said, we have to be agile and we must walk in the same steps as technology. Oftentimes, because we're walking in such a fast pace in technology, it's greatly being utilized by people with malicious intents, in this case by Putin and his proxies. Because information is so fast absorbed, it's so, basically you go on Facebook and you immediately see an information that is not verified. And and I think it's very concerning because it is something that can cause fear, it can cause riots, it can cause very destabilizing efforts that in our region we've seen and we've witnessed and we've felt 20 years ago. So we must really stand united in ensuring that we do not allow this. I'd like to take some examples of what's happening in our country. I mentioned a lot of great achievements that our country has made in different fields, but sometimes, and maybe people in the audience, when they come across Kosovo, most of the time it's not for the achievements that I mentioned. It is for scandals that are created with the intent to overshadow our country. And just according to the EU Parliament's report, and just recently also the EU Commission report was very harsh on media freedom in Serbia, we have seen very malicious intents to create scandals, fake scandals, to ensure that we change the narrative and we protect the status quo. So we do not move forward in our commitment, which is we're very committed to our Euro-Atlantic path. We want to become a member of the European Union, become a member of NATO, because there's scandals that are being created especially in the northern part of our country from Serbia, to ensure that our partners create this narrative that we are an unstable country, that we create very dangerous precedents, and this is very problematic because it's being served on the media, and therefore this is what people are seeing. And just as I mentioned, the EU Parliament report, it highlights that in Bosnia, Kosovo, Montenegro, this information landscape is dominated by Serbian media with the support of Russian disinformation networks. Now, if you just look into many different international indices, you will see that there's hardly any media freedom in the Balkan, in Serbia. It is completely controlled by the government, which has been in power for a very long time, and it currently controls not only the media, but most aspects of life. And it is extremely problematic because now we see very hard examples in Montenegro, in Bosnia, where people are believing this information that is being served. But when we talk about the problem, it's evident. We see it every day. We sometimes struggle with the solution. So what is the solution? I think that for us it's extremely important that we have unity. I talk about unity oftentimes in the case of Kosovo because in the 90s, in late 90s, when we had a war in our country and when people were being murdered for the sole fact of being an ethnic Albanian, our partners came to our rescue. So in 1999, our American partners, our Turkish partners, our British partners came to our rescue with the NATO intervention, as you remember. And we really value this unity. We really value this cooperation because ultimately this is about values. This is about what we stand for, our shared democratic values. And this leads me to my point in Ukraine. What is happening in Ukraine is a perfect example of how dangerous it is when you distort the truth. How dangerous it is when you create false narratives and you make people believe them. You've seen and you've heard Putin's outrageous narratives on Ukraine, which I would not even like to discuss because I think they're, I genuinely hope that people do not believe those narratives, but because of the lack of freedom, media freedom in Russia and in many countries, they are led to believe that this is the correct narrative. And this is why democracies must continue to stand united. We must continue to have platforms like this when we discuss ways to tackle disinformation and fake news, because we live in an era that we have cyber welfare, we're living in a time of cyber attacks, constant cyber attacks. So we must find ways, we must come together as democracies and find ways that we can tackle this issue and have a common response. I feel like this is very important to emphasize. We must have a common response because our shared democratic values, our security architecture in Europe is in danger right now. So we must stand united against Putin and its proxies in their efforts to continue with these false narratives and these destabilizing tendencies in Ukraine, in our country, in Bosnia, in Montenegro, in many parts of the world, because otherwise appeasement doesn't work. Appeasement doesn't lead to stability. Appeasement leads to more instability. Appeasement leads to more wars. We must be vocal and we must be strong in our response to people like Putin and its proxies in our region. We must also stand united in reporting the truth of what is happening in Ukraine, in our region and beyond. And I think it's very important to emphasize that we must continue to stand with Ukraine and we must continue to stand with the people of Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nuyu, for your contribution and your call for staying united in the sake of truth. Thank you. And we can run a second round for our panelists to share their additional sentences and comments on the matter. And we also, as His Excellency said, we can also take your questions to our panelists. Also, we are very welcome. And His Excellency Murat Karagöz, I have a second question for you. I think it would also be very valuable to learn about multilateral diplomacy tools Turkey has used for a more effective government communication. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you so much. As I explained in my introductory remarks, one of the things during COVID period that Turkey did was shifting a gear in the multilateralism, giving more way on diplomacy, bringing its role more in forefront in terms of mediation and facilitation. To this end, basically, in 2019 already, before COVID erupted, Foreign Ministry declared 3 openings. Number 1, digital diplomacy. Number 2, Asia Anew initiative. And number 3, this Antalya Diplomacy Forum. Through digital diplomacy, we were able to reach out larger groups, amount of people. We created new technologies within the ministry. We renewed our website. It is now in 10 languages, which is very unique in the world. We keep using our network. Turkey is the 5th largest diplomatic network in the world, with 257 diplomatic missions. And we created also digital services for our consular services, because Turkey has about 6 million citizens in Europe and 7 million perhaps generally all over the world, which is not an underestimable number, size. So therefore, it is quite important for us to have 24/7 digital consular services. Last year, 6 million people visited our website and get information about Turkey's foreign policy and its priorities. Within my department, we have created a digital design service. There are experts who are working for this. We keep sending messages through Twitter, Facebook, Instagram to commemorate national days and giving important messages, be it from the minister or deputy ministers. In terms of using Twitter, I guess more than 1.6 million followers of the Turkish Foreign Ministry. It is number 1 among European foreign ministries and 4th in the world, which is something to be proud of. We opened up our account in the Instagram as well, which is also very popular. And one of the features is that we keep sharing something about diplomacy. I see here many students from different universities of Istanbul. I have constant communication with them through instant communications, I mean WhatsApp or by phone. They all say that they find it quite useful. As far as the Antalya Diplomacy Forum is concerned, so we thought that it is quite important to support academically and intellectually the base of Turkey's foreign policy as well as diplomacy. So in the year 2021, actually we wanted to do this in 2020, but because of COVID, we had to cancel it. And we already put the theme, diplomacy in the digital age, but we couldn't materialize it. A year later, Foreign Minister was very patient about it and said that, Murat, with some other ambassador friends, we were working on this and we managed this. Innovative diplomacy, new era, new approaches. And we were able to bring bureaucrats, politicians, media people, private sector representatives, experts, influencers in Antalya to discuss the issues of global concern with a view to finding them solutions, actually discussing them in a quite free atmosphere. But last year was basically quite remarkable, although it was only the 2nd year of Antalya Diplomacy Forum. Under the theme of recoding diplomacy, we were able to collect in Antalya 17 heads of state and government, 80 foreign ministers, about 40 secretary generals of regional and international organizations, among them OSCE, NATO. It was quite an interesting activity. We will be doing this next year, the 3rd edition. All of you are invited to Antalya. If not able to show up in person, you can follow up in social media, because through TRT and TRT World, we were able to reach out basically larger communities. But last year was basically a quite success. An important feature of Antalya Diplomacy Forum is ADF Youth. We brought from 97 universities of Turkey 400 students. they were able to sit together with the panelists, to pose them questions, to interact with them in the coffee breaks, and then report them, having some social media sharings. So we will be doing this year in Antalya as well. So all in all, again, this is a strong commitment of Turkey to multilateralism and diplomacy. But before I end, how happy I am now being with Minister Tahsin Ertuğrul as well as with Marcos Orflens. I have special feelings to these both independent countries, and my sincere congratulations to Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus for being selected as the observer states, Organization of Turkic States. If I'm not mistaken, last week you had also a foreign guest, Deputy President of Gambia, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Minister. So congratulations, Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus in the right way. And I have also family ties with Kosovo. My grandfather from Prizren. It's a beautiful, many greetings to Kosovo as well. And thank you, Müşra Hanım, for this wonderful event. And again, if there will be any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Thank you.
It makes the both of us. Mr. Karagöz, my grandmother is from Kosovo as well, so.
So nice. There are more than 10 million people in Turkey
Yes.
who have Balkan origins, by the way.
Great. Your Excellency, you started with lines from a beautiful poem, The Man Who Wasn't There. And
Yes.
I wonder if you think the man is there for the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus in the social media.
Well, I can assure everyone that we are here and we're not going away. We are a reality that cannot be overlooked. And if anyone is at all interested, and my remarks again go to the UN Security Council Permanent 5, if anyone is interested in solving the Cyprus problem, then they must change the Security Council resolutions on Cyprus. These resolutions are treated by the international community, thanks to the P5, as if they are binding resolutions. I wish to inform everybody that the Security Council resolutions on Cyprus are advisory. They are not binding. And the obvious example of a country that does not follow Security Council resolutions on Cyprus is Turkey. Turkey recognizes the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, has an ambassador there. Turkey receives our ambassador in Ankara, and you don't hear of any United Nations activity to punish Turkey. So, again, these resolutions are advisory. And the more countries will free themselves from the influence of the P5, the more the world realizes, as President Erdogan says, that the world realizes that they are bigger than the five, then the positive developments for humanity, for democracy, for truth will flourish in the rest of the world. As the TRNC, as I said earlier, we are a fully fledged state. We have all organs of a modern state. We have 27 missions outside of Cyprus. 7 of them are in Turkey, 1 embassy and 6 consulate generals, and 20 outside of Turkey. Very soon, we'll be opening up a few more offices. As you can see, I refer to them as offices because of the lack of recognition. We cannot call them embassies. But as far as we're concerned, they are our embassies. They don't have diplomatic recognition. The ones outside of Turkey don't enjoy diplomatic recognition, but they are there and they serve to tell the countries they are situated in that there are 2 states on the island of Cyprus. The Greek Cypriot state is not the Republic of Cyprus. It's a purely Greek Cypriot state that represents only the Greek Cypriot people. And for the Turkish Cypriots, we have our own representation, Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. I will hasten to inform the audience that there is no Cypriot nation, my dear friends. There is no Cypriot nation. There is no Cypriot language. There is no Cypriot religion. Cypriotness is a geographic identity. Anyone from the island of Cyprus can be considered as being a Cypriot, but there is no Cypriot nation. As such, there is no Cypriot national anthem, because there is no nation. Even at the establishment of the Republic of Cyprus in '60, the Greek Cypriots were to continue using the Greek national anthem, as they still do, and we were to continue using the Turkish national anthem. So if anyone says they are a Cypriot, the follow-up question must obviously be Greek or Turkish, or one of the minorities, Armenian or Maronite. So, coming back to the misinformation and manipulation about the realities of the island of Cyprus and how we are coping with them. It's a very tough job for us to cope with it, misinformation and manipulation, because of the recognition that the Greek Cypriots enjoy. As a recognized state, obviously what they say carries more credibility as far as the international audience is concerned, because at the end of the day, it's the Republic of Cyprus, presumably, saying it. And they are dishing out misguided, wrong UN Security Council resolutions. So it's very easy for them to influence their audience. But we're doing whatever we can do to try to inform the rest of the world. The Department of Information is a department of the ministry that I represent, the Foreign Ministry. Day in and day out, for years, we have been sending information to the rest of the world about the realities of the island of Cyprus, about the Greek Cypriots, about us. But again, I emphasize, because of the recognition that they enjoy, they have an advantage over us. This does not mean that we're going to give up. This makes us even more determined to continue standing up against these difficulties. One example of an embargo we're facing, and the embargoes we face are all-encompassing. In every way of life, we are under embargoes. One of them, because of the ongoing World Cup football, we have obviously Turkish Cypriot Football Federation. We have 3 divisions, but we cannot play even a friendly game with a team from Turkey. Why? Because presumably the Greek Cypriot Football Federation is the football federation of Cyprus. And without their consent, we cannot even play a football game with a friendly game with a team from Turkey. This is ridiculous. This is inhuman. But this is just a minor example of the embargoes we're facing. But again, I say, this does not mean we're going to give up. All I can say is, to cut a long story short again, as long as the world treats the Greek Cypriots as if they are the so-called Republic of Cyprus that does not exist, and we are treated as if we are a community of that state, or even worse, as if we are a secessionist ethnic minority of that state, then there can be absolutely no improvement towards reaching a mutually acceptable deal as far as the Cyprus problem is concerned. So long as the Greek Cypriots enjoy the advantages that they enjoy, and we are disadvantaged the way we have been all these years, there will not be stability, harmony, and peace in the Eastern Mediterranean.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency. If we have no questions for His Excellency, I also want to say that I now know why such a young person like Mr. Renu is advising to the President of Republic of Kosovo now. And Kosovo's governmental bodies use social media very successfully. And I want to know what you have to say about that.
Well, just a fun fact, Kosovo is the youngest population in Europe. Our average age is around 27 or 28. So it's a very young population. I think I embody that today. Indeed, because of this fact, social media is widely used. Unfortunately, I don't have data in percentage, but I can say very confidently that it is the most used media platform. Therefore, it creates a lot of problems when messages are being conveyed. Because of this fact, we have taken it very seriously to ensure that government communication is correct, it's analyzed, and it's effective. That is why whenever we have tendencies that I mentioned previously from malign actors like Putin's proxies in our region, we tend to immediately utilize social media to ensure that people are well informed about the situation and that the correct reflection of what is happening in the country. So because of, I think, the hardships that we have endured for over 2 decades, I think we've become very good at ensuring that information is being conveyed correctly. I think it's very important that every time, especially when you come from a government office, the responsibility is much bigger. So you ensure that information that you release is well analyzed, the tone is correct. You ensure that your audience will take that information, and it is always with the mindset of ensuring that it does not create fear, it does not create any sort of tendencies in the population. So I think our very unfortunate dark history has made us very agile and very confident in how we use social media, and ensuring that despite hardships we walk in the same way, in the same pace. But to be frank, I think that's a problem in countries all over. We're looking at great examples, thankfully, but it definitely is problematic with our current digital ecosystem, because it is moving very fast, and sometimes we stand a step back. But we are trying to ensure that every new platform, every new communication tool that is being released and taking form, that we utilize it, and we ensure that we are in touch with the population, we're in touch with the people that we represent, and to ensure that information is always correct, unbiased, and true.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nuyu. Dear guests, we gained very useful and valuable information about the lessons learned from the valuable experiences of Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, Kosovo, and Turkey. As we conclude our session, I'd like to thank you for your participation, being here today. We are very happy to meet you in Istanbul, Turkey, for Stratcom at a very important historical turning point, and we hope to be able to meet again next year. Stay well. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all of you, and we're looking forward to the Antalya Diplomacy Forum. It's in April.
Yes, April, end of April.
28th and 30th of April. Thank you very much to all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time to give our legs a a little stretch, a small coffee break. 10 minutes. We'll see you back here in 10 minutes. We'll be continuing with our summit. Enjoy the coffee. We'll see you back here in 10 minutes.